Good morning, girls. So, we continue with the chapter The Little Match Girl by Hans Christian Andersen. But before I begin, let's recapitulate what we had studied yesterday. See, the only character in the story, that is the little girl, is out on the streets and she's trying to sell matchboxes on a chilly evening when it is snowing. And she has neither enough warm clothes to protect herself from the bitter cold, nor does she has footwear to protect her feet. So we can see that she walks naked feet on the streets. And though she had a pair of oversized slippers that belonged to her mother, she lost them when she was trying to save herself from the carriages. And now she's shivering from cold, she's hungry, and on the other side, we see that the whole world is celebrating the New Year's Eve with gleaming candles and delicious food. She is supposed to go home. Instead of going home, what she does, she fears a scolding from her father. So, what she does, she sits down between the two houses to protect herself from the chilly winds and the cold. And at that moment, she gets a temptation. Okay, she gets tempted to light a matchstick to warm herself, which delights her. But soon we see that the delight is over as the warmth of that stick is momentary. So, with that small flame, she tries to warm her little fingers. Okay, so we continue. Page 89. I'll read from the second para. She pulled out one scratch. How it spluttered and burned. It had a warm, bright flame like a tiny candle when she held her hand over it. But what a strange light! It seemed to the little girl as if she was sitting in front of a great iron stove with polished brass knobs and brass ornaments. The fire burned so beautifully and gave out such a lovely warmth. Oh, how wonderful that was! The child had already stretched her feet to warm them too, when out went the flame. The stove vanished, and there she sat with a burnt match in her hand. So, the next paragraph, in this paragraph, we see that she's tempted to light another matchstick. Before that, girls, please underline the word brass. Brass, it's a type of metal. And the next word also you underline knobs. Now, what's a knob? Knob is a round switch that you press or you turn. You have the door knobs, you have the gas knobs. Then skip three lines, then you underline the word vanished. Vanished means disappeared. So she lights another matchstick and it burns with a splutter, and it had a warm, bright flame just like a tiny candle when she held her hand over it. And it was a very strange light, and in that strange light, she sees a very strange vision. And what she sees herself sitting in front of a great iron stove that had polished brass knobs and brass ornaments. And the fire burned so beautifully and it gave out a lovely warmth, so she could warm her body easily. Oh, how wonderful that was! She was feeling really good, she was feeling warm, she was feeling very amazing. And she had already stretched out to warm herself. And as soon as she was stretching out her feet to warm her feet too, when out went the flame, and with that, the stove also disappeared, the stove also vanished. And there, poor thing, she sat with a burnt matchstick in her hand. Next para. She struck another. It burned clearly, and where the light fell upon the wall, the bricks became transparent like gauze. She could see right into the room where a shining white cloth was spread on the table. It was covered with beautiful china, and in the center of it stood a roast goose stuffed with prunes and apples steaming deliciously. And what was even more wonderful was that the goose hopped down from the dish, waddled across the floor with carving knife and fork in its back, waddled straight up to the poor child. Then out went the match, and nothing could be seen but the thick cold wall. So, in the next paragraph, we see that she strikes a matchstick for the third time and it burnt very clearly. And where the light fell upon the wall, the bricks became transparent. So, the entire brick wall it became transparent like a gauze. Now, please underline the word gauze. Gauze is a thin material like a net. We can see through a gauze. So when you get wounded and all, you use this gauze to cover your wound. So she could just see through the wall what was on the other side of the wall. And what a beautiful sight she saw. And what she saw, that over the table, white cloth was spread and it was covered beautifully with china. Now, china here, it doesn't refer to the country China. Now, this china is a hard white substance that is used for making crockery. Crockery are your plates, your cups, your saucers. And in the center of it stood a roast goose stuffed with prunes. Now, what are prunes? Prunes, it's a type of dried fruit, or you can say plum. So, right on the table, center of the table, there stood a roast goose and it was stuffed with dried fruits, it was stuffed with apples, and it smelled very, very delicious. Okay, it gave a very pleasant aroma. And what was even more wonderful was that the goose hopped down from the dish, waddled. Waddle means to walk with short steps. Okay, it waddled across the floor with carving knife and a fork in its back, waddled straight to the poor child. Now, carving knife, it's a knife with a long blade which is used to slice cooked meat. So it walked all the way to the child as if presenting itself to be relished. And that moment, what happened? Then out went the match, and nothing could be seen but the thick cold wall. So, again, as soon as the child was about to relish that roast goose, everything went out, and nothing could be seen except the thick cold wall. So, in the previous paragraph, girls, we saw that the first thing that is when she strikes a matchstick, what she sees a stove. Now, that stove symbolizes her desire, her yearning for warmth. So, that stove is a symbol of warmth that the child had been longing for. In the next paragraph, we see that she sees the vision of a roasted goose. Now that symbolizes her desire, her longing for food. Remember, she was hungry all day. No one had asked her for food, for water. No one had asked her for a penny. No one had given her a penny, and this time she was longing for food. Now we take the next page. She struck another match, and suddenly she was sitting under the most beautiful Christmas tree. So, when she strikes another matchstick, she finds herself sitting under the most beautiful Christmas tree. And this Christmas tree, it was much larger and much lovelier than the one she had seen last year through the glass doors of the rich merchant's house. So, this particular Christmas tree, it was more beautiful, it was bigger than what she had seen last year at a rich merchant's house. A thousand candles lit up the green branches, and gaily colored balls like those in the shop windows looked down upon her. Now, underline the word gaily. Gaily here refers to bright. Okay, bright color balls. So, this Christmas tree, as you all know, that people love to decorate the Christmas tree with different gifts, with colorful balls, and all sorts of decorations. So, this particular Christmas tree, okay, it was lit with thousand candles, and it was covered with brightly colored balls like red color, yellow color, golden color, orange color, which she had seen in the shops. The little girl reached forward with both hands. Then out went the match. And as soon as the little girl was reaching out for those gifts, that beautiful Christmas tree, out goes the match. The many candles on the Christmas tree rose higher and higher through the air. And she saw that they had now turned into bright stars. So it was a very strange sight. The many candles, okay, that decorated the Christmas tree, they rose higher and higher in the air. And what she sees that these candles, these brightly lit candles, they turned into bright stars. And one of them fell, streaking the sky with light. Streaking means brightly lighting. So one of these candles, which had turned into a star, it brightly lit the sky. Now someone is dying, said the little girl, for her old grandmother, the only one who had ever been good to her, but who was now dead, had said, whenever a star falls, a soul goes up to God. So that point of time, okay, she remembers what her grandmother used to say when she was alive, that whenever a star falls, a soul goes up to God. She struck another match on the wall. Once more there was light, and in the glow stood her old grandmother. Oh, so bright and shining, and looking so gentle, kind, and loving. So she strikes another matchstick on the wall, and this time what she sees the image of her grandmother. And how did she look? She looked so bright and shining. She looked very gentle, very kind, and loving. You must have observed, girls, many of you might be having your grandparents. So, our grandparents are very loving, very kind, very generous. They pamper us, they shower us with so many gifts and all. So, here you see, for this little girl, her grandmother was the only person who used to love her when she was alive. Other than her grandmother, she had a father, and she did not have a good experience with her father. Father used to always scold her, used to beat her, and all. So, grandmother was the only person whom she loved dearly. So this time when she strikes this matchstick, she sees the image of her grandmother, and the grandmother looked very bright, shining. She looked gentle, kind, and loving. Granny, cried the little girl, oh, take me with you. I know you will disappear when the match is burnt out. You will vanish like a warm stove, the lovely roast goose, and the great glorious Christmas tree. So she did not wanted her granny to disappear just like the previous things had disappeared, the warm stove, the roast goose, and the Christmas tree. So as soon as she sees the image of her grandmother, she cries out and she literally begs her to take her with her. Oh, and what she says, oh, take me with you. I know you will disappear when the match is burnt out. You will vanish like the warm stove, the lovely roast goose, and the great glorious Christmas tree. And what she does, in order to prevent that image from disappearing, what she does, then she quickly struck all the rest of the matches she had in the packet, for she did so want to keep her grandmother with her. So she did not wanted her grandmother to disappear just like the previous three things. The matches flared up. The matches flared up with such a blaze that it was brighter than the broad daylight, and her old grandmother had never seemed so beautiful or so stately before. So the light that all these matchsticks produce, okay, it was brighter than the broad daylight. And in that light, her grandmother had looked so beautiful. She looked very grand, very stately, very divine. And what she did, she took the little girl in her arms and flew with her high up, oh, so high, towards glory and joy. She did not lift the child physically, but she took the soul of the child with her, and away they flew high up, oh, so high, towards glory and joy. Glory and joy, girls, here it refers to heaven. Now they knew neither cold, nor hunger, nor fear, for they were both with God. Okay, so the granny, she took the soul of the little child and they ascended towards heaven or paradise. Now, girls, see, it is said that paradise or heaven, it's a place of only joy and happiness. There are no, you can say there's no misery in heaven. Okay, you cannot feel any cold, you do not feel any heat, you do not feel any pain. So, heaven is such a beautiful place with God. You find all the good people. After they die, they go to heaven. So, we come to the next page. But in the cold dawn, in the corner formed by the two houses, sat the little girl with rosy cheeks and smiling lips, dead, frozen to death on the last evening of the old year. So, you can underline the word dawn. Now, what does dawn mean, girls? Dawn is the first appearance of light before sunrise. Okay, so you can say dawn is the time before sunrise when the first rays of the sun appear. And the opposite of dawn is dusk. Now, dusk is the time after sunset when it is nearly dark. But in the cold dawn, in the corner formed by the two houses, sat the little girl with rosy cheeks and smiling lips, dead, frozen to death on the last evening of the old year. So she was a very beautiful child. She had rosy cheeks and smiling lips. So the next morning, the people find the dead body of this girl. Okay, she's frozen to death. And here we see this old year. What does this old year symbolize? This old year symbolizes the life of this child on this earth. What sort of, you can say, she had a very pitiful life on this earth, very painful life she led on this earth. So that was the old year. The dawn of New Year rose on the huddled figure of the girl. She was still holding the matches, and half a packet had been burnt. So, the New Year. Okay, old year symbolizes her past life, which was very miserable, very pitiable life, a life full of pain, full of hunger, cold, and the dawn of the New Year. Okay, the New Year symbolizes that she finds herself, in the New Year, she finds herself in a new world with God where there is no hunger, no cold. So the next morning, when the people find her, she was still holding the matches and half a packet had been burnt. So a great many people had gathered around there, and everyone was discussing among themselves that how this child might have died. So they remarked, she was evidently trying to warm herself, people said. See, evidently means clearly or obviously. So many people they remarked that she was clearly or she was obviously trying to warm herself. But no one knew what beautiful vision she had seen and in what a blaze of glory she had entered with her dear old grandmother into the heavenly joy and gladness of a new year. So, as I told you, girls, her grandmother had taken her innocent soul. Okay, they had ascended into heaven. Now they are in heaven with God the Father, and there is no pain, there is no suffering, there is no misery, there is no hunger. Okay, they are leading an eternal life. So, with the dawn of the new year, that child she entered into eternal life where she would be happy ever after. So, you see, girls, in her momentary joys, uh, this little girl, she achieves all the things that she desired when she was alive. Okay, she desired delicious food, luminous Christmas tree. Then she desired, she was longing for the nearness of her loving grandmother before she froze to death in the snowy winter. And now we see that she is able to go beyond the materialistic world. And now she has reached the eternal joys of other world, that is heaven. So it's a very touching story, girls. And it compels us to feel about the ways in which the poor and the destitute people suffer every day. So with this, we complete the chapter. I hope you all have understood the chapter, girls. So kindly complete the extracts given in your workbook. And once you can just go through the workbook, the story at a glance, and the summary and the critical appreciation which is given in your workbook. Thank you.